Hey guys, let's keep talking about from domestic affair to international affairs. Here I have more thing to say. Remember last time we talked about the fight between Lively and Baldoni. It's unlikely to be a good one because it costs probably cost more than the society will benefit from. Okay, but you know what's the worst? In international affairs, in international domains, what's the worst conflict? What's the worst fight? It's between Russia and the Ukraine. Okay, let's go back to the World War II. That's one of the best fight in human history, according to me. I mean, I'm not just I'm allowed to have my opinion, right? But not only when it comes to World War II, you see two things. Most people only see one. They only believe that okay, we beat Hitler, we defeated the Japanese imperialism, and that's it. But actually, there's a silent movement behind after World War II. You know, there's two kinds of a superpower. In the old superpower represented by UK, they really believe in colonialism. Okay, but at the end, after World War II, there is a decolonization movement. Okay, that's basically because the U.S. has played a very excellent role. Not only starting a Marshall Plan, but also they basically persuade the UK to walk away from the colonialism. So all the other countries, get up and say, "Hey, we don't want your ruling, your governing. We want independence." That's why we have so many uh, um, sovereign countries in the United Nations. This one, not many people see that, but I count it as a two biggest achievement from the World War II. But now let's look at this one. Let's look at the Russian-Ukraine war. Okay, there are two things that I want to make. You know, Obviously, my hope is we can end this stupid war in 2025. But what if not? I have some suggestions too. But let's see that. Let's look at the causes. Um, Nobody, almost nobody. Um, Including the U.S., majority of the U.S. and from Washington to the intellectuals, they don't see any responsibilities uh, from the NATO side, from the U.S. led, U.S. dominated NATO side. Okay, so let's face it, NATO without the U.S., it's basically almost half the power will be gone. Let's face the reality, right? But here, let's look at this. We have to recognize that NATO expansion is one of the, in my opinion, I mean, I also happen to agree with Mearsheimer at the University of Chicago, right? He said that earlier in uh, June or July, somewhere in the 2022, he made a YouTube video talk about the causes of behind what has driven up the Russian-Ukraine war. His idea, his word is that the NATO expansion bears primary responsibilities for the war. And I strongly recommend you that video is only about 20 minutes, okay? But you can see that the big picture, it's a totally different. I don't think anybody, starting from Biden, Biden, by the way, I mean, I was hoping that this guy, knowing that he's not having another term, he would have some higher wisdom, the wisdom that is really deep in his head. He would have showed up. I was very disappointed that this guy didn't have much wisdom in the head, whether he has a second term or no second term. Look at what he did, in the remaining weeks after he uh, basically declared not to run the second term. His movement is basically double down, using the executive word by Mearsheimer. Mearsheimer basically says that the U.S. has a feature is that when they recognize the problem, first of all, they usually don't recognize that, okay? But they, regardless whether they recognize the problem or not, they will always double down. They will continue with whatever they're doing to make it worse, okay? So we actually, I didn't see that, I didn't recognize how bad it is because the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken lately revealed that Russia, Putin was actually thinking about seriously about a nuclear bomb, using nuclear weapons. Okay, but China, fortunately, China talked him out of it. Okay, so that's why China plays a very good role in the international affairs. China, I would say this right now. China in the international affairs, China stand on the right side of history. The U.S. mostly is the wrong side of history. I won't be, holding myself up for not issuing the criticism of the U.S. But not just the Washington, okay? In outside Washington, we have a lot of U.S. intellectuals. They basically they're so used to looking at the world black and white, us versus them, and then they look at the very bad colored vision on the other side of countries like Putin and Xi Jinping and then the other guys like in Iran or North Korea. Some of them do, but you have to recognize that the world is not black and white. Okay, the world is not. We wish it would be that simple, but that's not. Okay. The other point that if you watch Mirsha Hamer, you'll see that one important point that he made is that his prediction is that in the end, the Russia would win. His reason is simple: who has a higher resolve, who has a bigger degree, a higher degree, higher amount of resolve. For Russia, the Ukraine joined the NATO. That is to him, for Putin, that's like an existential threat. They have to bet into the entire sources, all the sources they have. U.S. on the other hand, they couldn't care less about it. Really care less about the Ukraine. Ukraine is so far away from the U.S. Okay, I don't think that they can seriously say that we're committed to save Ukraine. Okay, they're just doing the lip services. Okay, so that's a very important thing. So that's why when you see that, when you guys see the, I suggest you to watch some National Geography and the Discovery. You'll find that when the lion, we know the lion kings, right? They're the strongest animal, basically at least in Africa. But when there's even a lion, when it was charged by a buffalo, straight ahead, you see what a lion will do? They run away. You know, that's why it's very important for the U.S. as the World Cup to understand that, to measure the resolve of different countries. If they are determined, if it's for them anything like an existential threat, we better be careful with that. Okay, we better don't mess around with that. We better run away like lions. Lions is pretty smart. They run away, but then next thing you see that they jump on the backside of the buffalo and then brought the guy down. So that's why we should do. U.S. don't, regardless of how strong you are, there's no, you don't want to bet your resources on countries that has a resolve, total determination on something. You don't want to mess around with that, regardless how strong you are. Okay, so here, this is one thing that I want to say that the next thing that we'll say that next time.